What about Joseph Henry? Joseph Henry, incredibly famous. He turned around and invented things like the electromagnetic motor. We've got a constant in physics, the Henry, for an inductor. It's named after this guy. And he prayed for divine guidance at his scientific experiments. Also the first director of the Smithsonian Institution. Bible believers do better science. Let's go in 1800s. Louis Agassiz, considered as the greatest science teacher of the old 1800s, the father of glaciology. He refuted Darwin scientifically right after Darwin wrote his book. George Stokes, fluid mechanics. Gregory Mendel was a monk, invented the whole idea of genetics. Louis Pasteur, you ever heard of Louis Pasteur? You're drinking milk, aren't you? Pasteurization, Louis Pasteur. Germ theory of disease, that was him, folks. Look what he said. He was intensely persecuted. Why? For his religious beliefs, right? The whole biological establishment couldn't stand the fact that he disproved spontaneous generation. Life doesn't come from non-life. That's what he proved was a lie. Life cannot come from non-life. And yet the world was teaching evolution, that life came from non-life. You rain down on a rock for millions of years, you form a primordial soup, and pop, out comes the first cells. No, folks. He also turned around and refuted Darwin scientifically, okay? But look at this. Only his persistence and sound experiments finally compelled the biologists to stop treating their patients' diseases with evolutionary-based ideas. Remember George Washington died? Yeah. What about Henry Faraday? Entomology? I don't think she should like entomology back there. I think she specialized in it. Lord Kelvin, degrees Kelvin. James Clerk Maxwell? James Clerk Maxwell? Raise your hand if you ever heard of James Clerk Maxwell. Ah, okay. There's the guys who are interested in science. Okay. Here's what Einstein said. Einstein said Maxwell made the greatest breakthrough or the most fruitful breakthrough in physics in the whole late 1800s. And yet look what he did. He mathematically refuted evolutionary nebular hypothesis, and that is still being taught in college textbooks today. Still wrong. He also scientifically refuted Darwin and other evolutionary philosophers. I didn't tell me about that part. What about 1900s? You mean one of the pioneers of electronics? Oh, look what he did. He was actually a Christian apologist. He wrote at least one major book against evolution. Founder and first president of the evolution protest movement. This is early 1900s, folks. George Washington Carver, how many inventions do you want out of one man? Amazing. Gave God the glory. Wilbur and Orville Wright, airplanes. How did two high school graduates, actually one of them didn't actually graduate, how did they turn around, high school graduates beat all the PhDs in the world in making an airplane? Did you know their father was a bishop? Unfortunately, there's a nomination. Wilbur Wright used to write letters for his father against the religious errors of some of the other groups. And his father, the bishop, used to brag about his boys of how the Bible influenced his two boys. Long after they became famous, they were still being influenced by the Bible. Warner von Braun? Raise your hand if you ever heard of Warner von Braun. He has more honorary doctorate degrees, I believe it's 27, than any human being has ever gotten. You know what some evolutionists say about him today? He's a second-rate scientist because he believes in creation. He wrote letters to the school board of California saying you should be teaching the scientific evidences for creation in your public school science classes. Remember, most of the things that benefited mankind on this planet came from the 30% that claim to have some belief in Christianity. The foundation of truth is God's Word. Bible believers do better science. This is my last scientist I'd like to go through. Michael Faraday. You ever heard of Michael Faraday? Some people call him the greatest experimental physicist of all time. He turns and says the Bible and the Bible alone is the only standard that you can have. He was with a religious group called the Sandemanians. They said Bible and Bible only. Very close to Christianity, true Christianity. Very, very close, okay? Here's a story. He became incredibly famous, by the way. Oh, I forgot to tell you. He wasn't allowed to go to college, Oxford and Cambridge, because of religious reasons. The religious group he followed was too conservative, so they wouldn't let him in these colleges. He became great anyways. So great they allowed him to the Royal Society, the greatest scientist in the world. So great that he would turn around and give demonstrations to other scientists. Big old gatherings come in and see these things, right? This is what happened one night. A crowded gathering of distinguished scientists had been listening spellbound to the masterly expositions of Michael Faraday. Now, how do you keep an audience entertained to where they pay attention, right? For an hour, he had held his brilliant audience enthralled as he demonstrated the nature and properties of the magnet. He brought his lecture to a close with experiments so novel, so bewildering, so triumphant that for some time after he resumed his seat, the house rocked with enthusiastic applause. Now imagine this. He did such a good job that a bunch of secularists out there, secular people, he walks over and sits down. They're still standing up in a standing ovation. Wow. Watch what happens. Prince of Wales, afterward be King Edward VII, rose to propose a motion of congratulations. The resolution, been duly seconded, was carried with renewed thunders of applause and more minutes of a thaw. And look what happened. Suddenly the uproar ceased. Strange silence fell over the audience. The assembly was waiting for Faraday's reply. Looking around. But it did not appear. Only his most intimate friends knew what had become of him. He was an elder in a little Sandemanian church. And the hour at which he concluded his lecture was the hour of weeknight prayer meeting. You mean the next king of England is getting ready to give you an award? Everybody's running in thunderous applause, and you got something better to do? That's right. I'm going to Wednesday night Bible study. Is that what you do? Ask yourself that. He was not concerned with the praises of men. He was concerned with obeying God. He became the author of eternal salvation, all them that obey him, right? How firm is your belief in God? Do you really believe that is from God? You see, the summary is this. Man has always ridiculed the Bible for all kinds of reasons. Whether it's stars, okay, they could prove the Bible wrong scientifically speaking. Water cycles, springs of the sea, ocean trenches. Remember those trenches? Paths of the sea. You don't start with science. George Washington died because of it. 8th day is the best day for circumcision. Yeah. Great scientists became great because of somehow that God, through his providence, allowed them to become great. Scientist after scientist after scientist. But just like Warner von Braun, you believe in young earth creation, you'll be called a second-rate scientist no matter how many degrees you get. You ready for that? You better be. 1861. French Academy of Science. This is the top science academy, right? For France anyways. They turned around and listed 51 scientific facts. These are, you cannot dispute these. These are known to be facts. 51 scientific facts that directly contradicted the Bible. They published these. Guess what happened? Not a single one of those 51 scientific facts is considered as accurate today. They're so wrong, they'd say, oops, well, we were wrong, we were wrong, we were wrong. Say that 51 times. We're wrong, we're wrong, we're wrong, we're wrong, we're wrong. We ought to make them stand up and write on a chalkboard. We were wrong, we were wrong, we were wrong 51 times, every single one of them, right? That's what you might do to an evolutionist. Historically, as the Bible has taught science, it's not the other way around. The foundation of truth is God's word. Remember what we saw from archaeology? God has always had his word attacked. And as it turns out, eventually we find out his word was right. Don't lose your soul before man finds out that man was wrong. The Bible was right. Yep, the evidence is obvious. So therefore, hold on to your faith.